and welcome back to Typing Tuesday. Today, we will take a closer look at fact-checking. Fact-checking is like being a detective for information. When you hear or read something, it's about making sure it's true. It's not just believing everything at face value, but asking questions and investigating, just like you would solve a mystery. Imagine you're a superhero with the power to find out if what people say is accurate. Fact-checking involves looking for evidence, comparing different sources, and making sure the information is reliable. It's like being a guardian of truth, ensuring that what you know is real and helping you make smart decisions. So the next time you see or hear something that seems to be strange, then you might try and fact-check to verify if it is true or false. Let's take a look at a short video that explains this more. After that, stay tuned for the Anime Club announcement and This Week in History. See you all next week and have a nice day.
Have you noticed all the accounts on your Instagram page lately that have the word fact in them? There are hundreds of these, including @fact, @factsuntold, @blowingfact, @factsdaily. You get the idea. They all have huge followings and thousands of posts, which they churn out constantly. The posts usually have a photo or video referencing pop culture, sports, or history, and a short sentence underneath with a wild fact. Here are just a few of the bold claims. Babies born in January are more likely to become rich and famous. Oreo builds a doomsday vault. In Switzerland, you can be denied citizenship for being too annoying. But is there any truth to some of these wacky facts? Time to find out, is this legit? Hi everyone, it's Ian, and welcome back to another episode of Is This Legit? A series brought to you by MediaWise and PBS Student Reporting Labs, where we fact-check viral misinformation and teach you ways that you can do it on your own. You're watching YouTube or TikTok right now, right? Well, a recent survey found that more than half of teens get news from social media these days. Unfortunately, unlike traditional news sites, it's really hard to separate fact from fiction when the news is coming from social media. Take, for example, Instagram, which 72% of teens use regularly. The social media platform, designed primarily to share photos with friends, has spread in recent years to promote public pages. Now, these posts are being promoted through the Explore page and even your own feed, so you'll see them even if you don't follow them. Let's look at two posts from a couple of these fact page sites I mentioned earlier. A claim from @NotCommonFacts says, quote, "Your tongue is the strongest muscle in your body." A picture of a woman with her tongue out is the only other thing on the post, which has over 10,000 likes. A simple keyword search led me to this article from Scientific American. The article says this myth started because many people wonder why their tongue is never tired. This is because the tongue is actually made up of 8 separate muscles that intertwine together. But the word strongest is a bit subjective because things like brute force and leverage are important to the body. Nonetheless, the article confirms that the tongue is not the strongest in any category. So we would rate this claim not legit. You would need to take the extra step of leaving Instagram to fact check a lot of these pages. And not all claims on these fact sites are flat out wrong. This post comes from @blowingfact with 7 million followers. It says that until 1974, it was illegal to appear in public in Chicago if you were ugly. Over 80,000 people liked the post, but here's a red flag. The caption doesn't provide any context, evidence, or links whatsoever. So after doing a keyword search, I found a Snopes article, which surprisingly rated this claim as true. I dug in a little more, and the article explains that in the late 1800s, cities enacted unsightly beggar ordinances, better known as ugly laws, to get beggars off of the street. Snopes adds that after World War I, as veterans came home with injuries and deformities, enforcement of the law quickly stopped, although it remained on the books in Chicago until 1974, just as the post claimed. We're going to rate this claim as needs context. These fact posts are super appealing on Instagram, probably because of their quirky, sometimes off-the-wall content and bizarre visuals, things that really just stick with you. Plus, like any social media platform, Instagram's algorithm values engagement, which means it's going to surface posts with extreme or surprising content. It's a double whammy that can make your brain turn off its critical thinking filter. And while some of the posts on the fact pages are flat out wrong, some are true, and not all are misinformation. But what are some things you can look for to help you spot these questionable fact pages? First, these pages almost always have the word fact in their usernames. Second, These accounts make money by promoting products, selling followers, or receiving ad revenue based on clicks. For example, @FactsUntold says right in the bio, grow your account, paid promotion available. So, media lit tip, check the bio. One of the biggest motivators for spreading falsehoods online is money. Finally, and probably the biggest red flag, almost none of the accounts I went through posted sources or links to their content. While most of the posts on these fact pages are harmless, evergreen content, some are not. And it's important that viewers know how to discern the truth. Thanks for tuning in to this episode of Is This Legit? And remember to subscribe and like for more fact checks just like this. I'll see you next time.
Don't compromise, be media wise.
All right, for this week for Anime Club, we present an episode of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. Be warned, it's in the title. It took 2 previous episodes to lead to this climactic fight between Jotaro and Dio, and it finally explodes on the screen, as you can see from a couple of the GIFs here. Very similar to the style of Dragon Ball and all the Dragon Ball different series. A lot of fighting, not so much yelling that you get in the Dragon Ball, but a lot of fighting in this. That's a little bit too much for you. Also on Wednesday, the Craft Club, held by our very own Miss Hanel at the Wellness Center, also 2:45 to 3:30. You got Gromit there, his sedate activity of knitting himself a scarf there. And for those of you more technologically and mathematically inclined, we have the STEM Club, which happens also on Wednesday from 2:45 to 3:45. They're in room 108, which is Mrs. Brodur's room. So that concludes the presentations for this week, and hopefully we'll see you at one of those clubs. Thank you very much for viewing. Hello and welcome once again to another This Week in History. I'm your host, Mr. Simonton. January 28, 1915, the United States Coast Guard was created by an act of Congress combining the life-saving service and the revenue cutter service. Cutter was basically a very fast sailing ship back at that time. All right, some kind of darkness. There's actually going to be a couple of dark episodes in this presentation. The U.S. Space Shuttle Challenger exploded 74 seconds into its flight, killing 7 persons, including Krista McAuliffe. She was the teacher, who was to be the first ordinary citizen in space. And this is her over here on the left-hand side. And I do remember that incident. I was working at Hughes Aircraft at the time. Kind of a dark day for the space program and for the country as a whole. January 29th, 1919. Yeah, this is for you drinkers out there. The 18th Amendment to the United States Constitution, otherwise known as Prohibition, was ratified. It means it was accepted. For nearly 14 years, until December 5th, 1933, the manufacture, transportation, and sale of alcoholic beverages was illegal in the United States. The amendment had the unexpected result, though, of causing enormous growth of organized crime, which provided bootleg or illegal liquor to thirsty Americans. And we Americans, we love our alcohol, especially our beer. It was then repealed later on. This is an interesting one. January 30th, 1835. I love this story. These are kind of these quirky stories that happen throughout history that you can't make up. President Andrew Jackson survived the first assassination attempt on a U.S. president. While leaving the House of Representatives chamber, an insane would-be assassin fired 2 pistol shots at him. However, both pistols misfired. That means they didn't go off, and the president was unharmed. Well, everybody was kind of in shock that what had just happened. Jackson's going, well, you guys going to do anything about this? And nobody did, and so he leapt forward and started beating the man with his cane. In fact, they actually had to pull Jackson off from the guy because they were afraid he was going to kill him. Later on, once some people got a hold of the pistols, they tried the pistols, and they worked just fine. So why they misfired that time, no one knows for certain. But it's kind of an amazing fact that they misfired, and later they tried them and they did work. Also, January 30th, 1968, the beginning of the Tet Offensive in Vietnam, as North Vietnamese troops attacked 36 capitals and 5 major cities in South Vietnam, including an attack on the U.S. Embassy in Saigon, which they overran and occupied, and also the presidential palace. The U.S. forces eventually fended off the massive surprise attack and achieved a military victory. Tet became a propaganda. So basically it's about influencing people's minds and attitudes. Propaganda victory for the Vietnamese due in part to the graphic news reports on television, which helped turn the United States public opinion against the continuation of the war. It finally ended in 1973. It's still 5 years later, though. January 34th, 1943, German troops surrendered at Stalingrad, marking the first big defeat of Hitler's army during the Second World War. During the Battle of Stalingrad, 160,000 Germans were killed and 90,000 taken prisoner, including the commander, Friedrich von Paulus. He was commander of the German Sixth Army, the first German field marshal ever to surrender. The captured Germans were forced to march to Siberia, which is in northeastern Russia, with few ever returning to Germany. The climatic conditions there are just very harsh, and that's Friedrich von Paulus there in the center. Another dark, like I said, this is kind of a dark episode here for us. February 1st, 2003, 16 minutes before it was scheduled to land, the space shuttle Columbia broke apart in flight over West Texas, killing all 7 crew members. The accident may have resulted from damage caused during liftoff when a piece of insulating foam from the external fuel tank broke off, piercing a hole in the shuttle's left wing that allowed hot gases when it was entering the atmosphere to penetrate the wing and penetrate the wing during re-entry into Earth's atmosphere. I do remember that one too. It's another sad day in the American space program. Now we have no shuttles. February 2nd, yes, Groundhog Day, and I got my fellow right here. It's celebrated. It derives from the Pennsylvania Dutch Constitution, or superstition, that if a groundhog emerges from its burrow on this day and sees its shadow, it will retreat back to its den, and winter will go on for 6 more weeks. So when February 2nd comes around this Friday, go out and listen to their news report and see what they say in Pennsylvania. If it doesn't see its shadow, though, spring will arrive early. Another kind of tradition ever since the movie came out is to watch Groundhog Day, which I'm sure you can find at about half a dozen different TV stations. It's a wonderful movie starring Andie MacDowell and Bill Murray, and highly recommended. So check it out, Groundhog Day. Punxsutawney Phil, he recommends it. February 2nd, 1848, the war between the United States and Mexico ended with the signing of the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo, something people in 8th grade are going to be learning about. In exchange for $15 million, the United States acquired the areas encompassing parts or all of present day, and this is going to be a list: California, Nevada, Utah, Arizona, New Mexico, Wyoming, Colorado, Kansas, Oklahoma, and Texas. I'm surprised that Partridge in a Pear Tree wasn't included in the deal. So you can see by the map, we got a huge chunk of territory, basically expanded our nation by about 1/5 to 1/4 the size of our nation. February 3rd, 1870, something positive here. The 15th Amendment to the United States Constitution was ratified, guaranteeing the right of citizens to vote regardless of race, color, or previous condition of servitude, which basically means if you were a slave. So basically granted the right to vote to all slaves. But just males, not women. Women of any color were still denied the right to vote until 50 years later. Notable birthdays. 28th of January, the explorer Henry Stanley was born in Wales. As a newspaper correspondent for the New York Herald, he was given the challenging assignment of finding the missionary explorer David Livingstone in Africa. Upon locating Livingstone near Lake Tanganyika in 1871, after an exhausting search, Stanley simply asked, and I love this, "Dr. Livingstone, I presume?" Next, on the 29th of January, we have the Common Sense author, Thomas Paine. We talked about him in 8th grade. He was born in Thetford, England. His pamphlets, published in 1776, provided inspiration to undecided Americans that a new nation independent of Britain might eventually become an asylum or a refuge for all mankind. He served in the Continental Army under Washington and observed the hardships of the American troops fighting the world's most powerful army, especially at Valley Forge, that terrible winter there. He then published The American Crisis, a series of pamphlets which began by stating, "These are the times that try men's souls." He refused to accept the profits from his writings and unfortunately wound up poor after the revolution. Another dark part of American history here, William McKinley, 25th president, was born in Niles, Ohio. He was elected in 1896 and re-elected in 1900. Early in his second term, though, on September 6, 1901, he was shot and mortally wounded by an anarchist, basically means a person who doesn't want government, at the Pan American Exposition in Buffalo, New York, and died 8 days later, which that gave us rise to Teddy Roosevelt, which brings us to the next person's birthday, his cousin on the 30th of January, Franklin Delano Roosevelt. The 32nd president was born in Hyde Park, New York. Despite crippling polio, he led America out of the Great Depression and through World War II, and is widely considered one of America's three greatest presidents, along with Washington and Lincoln. I know that he was my father's favorite president because my father grew up during that time. One of his famous quotes is, "When peace has been broken anywhere, the peace of all countries is in danger," he stated in 1939 after the invasion of Poland by Germany. '31st of January, Jackie Robinson, for all you baseball fans out there, who was born in Cairo, Georgia. First African-American to play professional baseball. He played for the Brooklyn Dodgers from 1947 to 1956 and was chosen as the National League's most valuable player in 1949, and he was elected to the Baseball Hall of Fame in 1962. Next, we have the Hollywood director. The Oscars were just announced this morning. So Hollywood director John Ford, who was born in Cape Elizabeth, Maine, known for The Grapes of Wrath and The Searchers, two very famous movies. He also served in World War II as the chief photographic unit of the OSS, the Office of Strategic Services, which will one day later become the CIA. He also earned 2 Academy Awards for documentaries made during the war. Next, on the 3rd of February, we have the first female physician in the United States. We talked about her a little bit earlier, Elizabeth Blackwell. She was born near Bristol, England. As a girl, her family moved to New York State. She was awarded her medical doctorate by the Medical Institute of Geneva, New York in 1849. She then established a hospital in New York City run by an all-female staff. She was also active in training women to be nurses for service during the American Civil War. That's definitely proved very helpful there. And lastly, also on the 3rd of January, one of my favorite artists, artist and illustrator Norman Rockwell. He was born in New York City, best known for depicting ordinary scenes from small-town American life for the covers of the Saturday Evening Post magazine, where you see a couple of those images right now. So we have, I love this first one, the young lady with the shiner. You can definitely see she's been in a tussle. She's got a scraped knee, got a black eye, but she's got a great big smile on her face as she waits outside the principal's office. So that tells me that she definitely, whatever competition there was, she won that one. Next we have the marbles champion. Love this one too. You notice that the marble bags of the two boys are completely empty, and the girl, she's basically got them all. I remember my father taught me how to play a game of marbles when I was very much younger. Next one, you have Happy Birthday, Miss Jones. Kind of love this. The students all respected their teacher there and wishing her a happy birthday. Sorry for the lawnmowers in the back. I hate this. Next, we have the expert salesman. I remember my father, when my brother graduated with his MBA, my father brought him this lithograph, The Expert Salesman. I love this painting, and it gives you some idea about my brother's character. He could definitely sell ice boxes to Eskimos. That's the kind of personality he had. Now this next one, Homecoming GI, there's a lot going on here. First thing I notice is that the serviceman returning home, he served in the 3rd Army. He's got 4 overseas service stripes on his sleeve, which means he's been away from home for 2 years. Notice that there are stars in the windows here, which tells me that each of these families has had a serviceman that's overseas fighting in the war. A blue star means that they're serving. Unfortunately, if they die overseas, they get a gold star. Unfortunately, none of the families here have gold star. And you can see virtually every single family has a gold star here. They're probably also one of my favorite things, besides just the expressions of joy on the families, is the girl they left behind is waiting here on the wings to surprise them as her boyfriend has come home. Another great one here. Santa at his desk looking at all the requests from all the children around the world. Another one here, it's a speech given by Franklin Delano Roosevelt in 1939 called The Four Freedoms. And the four freedoms are freedom of speech, freedom of worship, freedom from want, and freedom from fear. And that concludes Mr. Simonton's This Week in History. So I'm going to leave you with a song about Jackie Robinson by Count Basie and his orchestra. Thank you for viewing, and we'll see you all again next week.
Hit that ball. It went zooming across the left field wall. Yeah, boy.
Yes, yes, Jackie hit that ball.
And when he swung his bat, the crowd went wild because he knocked that ball a solid mile. Yeah, boy.
Yes, yes, Jackie hit that ball. Satchel Paige is mellow, so is Campanella. Newcomb and Dobie too. But it's a natural fact, when Jackie comes to bat, the other team is through.
Did you see Jackie Robinson hit that ball? Did he hit it? Yes, and that ain't all. He's so home.
Yes, yes, Jackie's real gone.